Israel and Hezbollah have a long and, well, bloody history. Hezbollah, a Shia Islamist political party and militant group based in Lebanon, emerged in the 1980s. Its primary goal was to resist Israeli occupation of southern Lebanon. In 2000, after years of conflict, Israel withdrew. However, tensions have persisted. Hezbollah, backed by Iran, has grown increasingly powerful. It possesses a vast arsenal of rockets and missiles. Israel sees Hezbollah as a major threat to its security. The two sides have fought several wars and engaged in numerous smaller skirmishes. The most significant conflict was the 2006 Lebanon War, which lasted for 34 days. The war resulted in significant casualties and destruction on both sides. Despite the cessation of hostilities, the underlying tensions and mistrust have remained. This latest escalation is a stark reminder of the volatile situation. It highlights the potential for even minor incidents to rapidly escalate into a full-blown conflict. Hezbollah's primary objective is to liberate all of Palestine. It views Israel as an illegitimate state. Hezbollah also aims to establish an Islamic state in Lebanon. Israel, on the other hand, seeks to ensure its security and prevent attacks from Hezbollah. It views Hezbollah's growing military capabilities as a serious threat. Israel has repeatedly stated that it will not tolerate any attacks on its citizens or territory. The current situation is extremely dangerous. Both sides are heavily armed and committed to their respective causes. Without a political solution, the cycle of violence seems destined to continue. The international community must engage in intensive diplomatic efforts to prevent a catastrophic escalation. The stakes are extremely high, not just for Israel and Lebanon, but for the entire region. The recent escalation began with a targeted assassination. Fuad Shukr, a high-ranking Hezbollah commander, was killed in a drone strike. While Israel has not officially claimed responsibility, it is widely believed to have been behind the attack. Shukr was a key figure in Hezbollah's military operations. His death was a significant blow to the organization.
Hezbollah vowed revenge for Shukr's assassination. It accused Israel of crossing a red line. Retaliation was swift and decisive. Hezbollah launched a barrage of rockets and missiles into northern Israel. The attacks targeted Israeli military positions and civilian areas. Israel responded with airstrikes on suspected Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. The situation quickly escalated into the most serious confrontation between the two sides in years.
Hezbollah's retaliation was not merely about avenging Shukr. It was also a calculated show of force. Hezbollah wanted to demonstrate its military capabilities and its resolve to respond forcefully to any Israeli aggression. The message was clear: Israel cannot act with impunity. Any attack on Hezbollah will be met with a strong and determined response. This latest round of violence highlights the dangers of the current situation. The assassination of a high-profile figure like Shukr was always likely to provoke a major response from Hezbollah. The incident underscores the need for restraint and dialogue. Without a concerted effort to de-escalate tensions, the risk of a wider conflict remains very real. Israel, for its part, has adopted a policy of preemptive strikes against perceived threats. It argues that this is necessary to defend itself against Hezbollah's aggression. Israel has carried out numerous airstrikes on suspected Hezbollah targets in Lebanon and Syria. These strikes have targeted Hezbollah's weapon stockpiles, training camps, and command centers.
Israel claims that its preemptive strikes are highly effective in degrading Hezbollah's military capabilities. It argues that these strikes are necessary to prevent Hezbollah from launching attacks on Israel. Israel also maintains that it takes great care to avoid civilian casualties.
However, these claims are disputed. Human rights groups accuse Israel of using excessive force and causing civilian casualties. Israel's policy of preemptive strikes is highly controversial. Critics argue that it is counterproductive and only serves to escalate tensions. They argue that these strikes make a political solution more difficult to achieve. They also point out that these strikes often result in civilian casualties, which further inflames the situation. Despite the criticism, Israel shows no signs of abandoning its policy of preemptive strikes. It believes that this is the only way to deter Hezbollah and ensure its own security. However, this approach carries significant risks. It could easily lead to a wider conflict, which would have devastating consequences for the entire region.
Hezbollah's response to Israel's preemptive strikes has been carefully calibrated. It has avoided a full-scale confrontation. Instead, it has opted for limited but symbolic retaliatory attacks. These attacks are designed to demonstrate Hezbollah's strength. and deter further Israeli aggression. They are also intended to bolster Hezbollah's image as a resistance movement among its supporters.
Hezbollah's tactics have evolved significantly over the years. It has transitioned from a guerrilla force into a more conventional army. Hezbollah now possesses a vast arsenal of rockets, missiles, and drones. It has also developed sophisticated tactics for fighting in urban environments. This makes it a much more formidable opponent than it was in the past.
Hezbollah's military capabilities pose a significant challenge to Israel. Israel can no longer count on its military superiority to deter Hezbollah. This has led to a shift in Israeli military doctrine. Israel is now more focused on containment and deterrence than on seeking a decisive victory.
This suggests that the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah is likely to continue for the foreseeable future. The key question is whether this latest escalation will spiral out of control. Both sides have so far shown restraint. However, the situation remains highly volatile. Any miscalculation or accident could trigger a wider conflict. The international community must urge both sides to exercise restraint and work towards a political solution. The international community has expressed deep concern over the latest escalation between Israel and Hezbollah. The United Nations has called for restraint from both sides. It has urged them to return to the negotiating table. World leaders have echoed these sentiments. They have warned that further violence is in no one's interest.
The United States, Israel's closest ally, has reiterated its unwavering support for Israel's right to defend itself. However, the US has also called on Israel to exercise restraint and avoid civilian casualties. The US has also urged all parties to avoid actions that could further escalate the situation.
Russia, which has close ties to both Iran and Hezbollah, has called for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. It has offered to mediate between the parties. However, Russia has also criticized Israel's airstrikes in Syria. It has accused Israel of violating Syrian sovereignty.
The European Union has expressed its concern over the escalation of violence. It has called for a ceasefire and a return to dialogue. The EU has also called on all parties to respect international humanitarian law. It has urged them to avoid actions that could harm civilians.
The situation remains extremely fragile. Tensions are high. The risk of a wider conflict remains very real. Both sides have shown a willingness to use force. Neither seems willing to back down. This makes the situation extremely unpredictable. It is difficult to predict what will happen next. Several factors could tip the balance towards war. Another targeted assassination, like that of Fuad Shukr, could easily provoke a major retaliation from Hezbollah. A miscalculation or accident, such as an errant rocket strike that causes significant civilian casualties, could also lead to a rapid escalation. The international community must remain actively engaged. It must use all its diplomatic tools to prevent a wider war. This includes maintaining pressure on both sides to exercise restraint. It also involves working to address the underlying causes of the conflict. A lasting solution to this conflict seems unlikely in the near term. Too much mistrust exists between the parties. Too many unresolved issues remain. However, that does not mean that we should give up hope. Even small steps towards de-escalation and dialogue can make a difference. The international community must continue to work tirelessly to create the conditions for a more peaceful future.